if you are receiving audio, please tell me, because I'd love to know. And actually, I guess our stream doctor is going to tell us in a moment if we have any audio here. Oh, yeah, I do. So we're just going to confirm here that we have some audio, and then we'll move forward here. I'm just happy. I'm just so happy. Yeah, so we're good for audio. Thanks. We'll see you on the stream. All right, ciao. Okay, great. So for those who missed the intro there, I'm Andrew Brown. For those who don't know, I create AWS certification training material across the board, but I don't know everything, even though it seems like I do. And one of those services I really want to get better at is AWS Amplify. So today, joining me is the AWS Amplify Toronto meetup organizer. And so what we're going to do is we're going to work our way through an AWS Amplify application. And so I'll let Karam take it over and introduce himself and talk about what we might be able to achieve today.
Sure. Hi, my name is Karam. I've been working with Amplify for about a year and a half now, maybe a little longer, and been really happy with it. It's made quite a bit. I'd say they made a lot of improvements in the past year, and I'm excited to share it with you all. So I met Andrew a while ago at some meetups, and we've been chatting about various technologies. So I'm happy to be here.
Cool. So what I've done here is I've just set up a sandbox AWS account, and there's literally nothing on it. So we're going to have to try to work our way through it. The objective here is not necessarily to finish an application, but to get the experience from a new person trying to really understand Amplify and to work through those hurdles. Because I'm sure if you're trying to do this as well, you're going to get stuck in the same places. But that's why we have our expert here, so that we can try to find more information around there. So for those who don't know Cloud9 is an IDE. If you've ever used Visual Studio Code, it is similar, or if you use Atom, but it is basically running on Amazon Linux 1, and it's preloaded with a bunch of libraries, but has nothing on it. So we can get going here. So probably the first thing we'll have to do is install the AWS Amplify CLI. I'm not sure what it is off the top of my head. Do you have any idea?
Yeah, npm install. Do you want me to type, or do you want to type?
Oh, I can do it.
Sure.
Yep.
So npm install -g at. Oh, geez. No, I better check.
All right, that's okay. Like -g, you mean, for like global?
Yeah. Sorry, -g.
-g. So, and while you do that, I'm just going to try Amplify. I found a package. Is it version 0.0.11?
Oh, no, I hope not. So it's at AWS.
Oh, there we go.
-amplify/CLI.
Okay. There we go.
I'm going to keep the docs open too, just in case here.
Oh, yeah, that helps. So we'll just take a look here and see if it actually installed. And so is not part of the register, AWS Amplify CLI latest. So did I type it right?
Hold on, there's a bit of a lag. I'm not seeing it on my side.
So are you in the Cloud9 environment, or can you see my bash terminal? I think there's a way to get to it. Like there's a way to focus on one. So I think it's on the right-hand side. If you go to collaborators and you drop down here, you should be able to see my terminal and click on it.
Sorry, so if I go to collaborators on the right.
Yep.
Open active file.
Yep. Yeah, and so there might be one called terminal in there. Under me, do you see it? I'm not sure if it'll let me, or what I can do is I can click on yours, I think, and then I can see what your bash looks like.
Hold on, it only has root. It didn't have. Are you root? So,
yeah, I'm root. Don't tell anyone that I logged in as root.
Oh boy. Oh no. Yeah, for some reason it's not coming up.
Okay. Let me see here. Because there's definitely a way. I've done this before where you're able to see the other's terminal. But anyway, what I'll do is I'm just going to copy this up into the README file, because I bet you can see that, right? If I just clear that out.
Sure. Yeah, I can see a README file.
Okay. And so I'll just paste that into here. So that's what I was typing.
No, I'm still not seeing anything.
In the README?
Nope.
Huh. Okay, can you do me a favor and try to put something in the README?
Sure.
That's crazy. I don't see your cursor or anything. But it says you're in here.
Preview, run.
If I save the file and you double click it, can you see it?
Nope.
Okay, 1 second. I'm just going to double check to make sure we're in the same environment. So I'm going to just copy you a link and paste it over to you in our Skype window. And maybe that's all we have to do to resolve it, eh? Did but you just came into the environment that I had set up, right?
That's right, yeah.
Okay. Huh. Copy. We'll just do this to rule it out. Nothing ever goes smoothly for me, ever.
So I see my changes to the file.
Oh, cool. Yeah, so I see it now as well. So if I just type something here, do you see it? On line 17? I see happy coding test 1, 2, 3.
Nope, I don't see a 3.
Or sorry, test 1, 2.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, there we go. So
yeah.
now we're all synced up, right? You can see me moving around?
There, yep.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I don't know. I guess sometimes there's a bit of a delay there. But I should be able to open your terminal. Yeah, so now I have your terminal open. So can you go ahead and just type in npm I and the command? I'm just going to see if it works here.
All right.
Yep, I can see you in real time. Cool. So yeah, we got AWS Amplify -G AWS. So I wasn't putting the @ in there. That was the issue there. For those who don't know, the -G stands for global. And as you're doing that, I'm just going to reduce the font a little bit here so it's not super giant. And then we will get along our way here. So I'm going to go here and just pump down the font so it is not insane.
So yeah, the window's a little interesting. It's like tiled or something.
Yeah. I've never seen anyone pair program, so I think we're trend setting here, eh?
On Cloud9?
Yeah.
Cool. I know there's a plugin for VS Code I've seen a few people use, but I haven't tried it myself.
So for actually, I just set it up today. So I have Code Server. Like VS Code has a server version called Code Server, and so you can just stand it up. Azure has something called Visual Studio Code Workspaces that's in previews. It's supposed to be just like this with Visual Studio Code. So honestly, I like Visual Studio Code better, but like, you know, when you're on AWS, it's just easy to spin up a Cloud9 environment. So it looks like that is finished installing. And so we need to initialize a new project. And I'm just going to see if I can take over here. And you just tell me if you're able to see what's going on here. So I'm assuming we can just type in Amplify CLI or just Amplify. Like shows you the last time I used it. And I'm going to assume it's going to print out some stuff and tell us what we can do.
That's right.
So I can't really still see what's going on here. So I guess I'm just going to pump down the font until I can see it. I tried to make it really easy for everybody else to read. So we'll just bring down the font a little bit here. And I'm just going to write that in there one more time. And I'm just going to close my window here. And so the options we have is, I can't see them all. We have add, update, push, remove, console. So I assume there must be some way to provision a project. Do you know the command off the top of your head?
Yes. First, we should start off with like npx. We should create a React app.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Okay.
Because the way Amplify works, so I'll start from like the very ground level.
Yeah.
Amplify really is an add-on to your existing project, so your front-end project. It's about spinning up all your back-end resources for either a mobile app or a web app. And so I typically use create React app just to, you know, build something quickly. And then once we're inside of that app, then we'll go through and configure Amplify and install.
So, but I guess with Amplify, if you wanted to, you don't have to use anything. You just use plain JavaScript, right? With HTML pages, could it serve that up, or does it have to be? Does it have to be powered by a JavaScript framework?
No, you could put it in any folder, you know, or
Okay,
sorry,
cool.
any project you wanted. Yeah.
Cool. So do you happen to have a project laying around for us, or do you want to set one up from scratch?
Sure. Let's see. Does this work here? npx create React app. I'm going to say amplify. We're going to call this amplify new.
Yeah.
And then what use? You want to use npm?
Mm-hmm.
That should work, right?
Yep.
And so the way Amplify works is it abstracts away the various components of your application. So you can think of it, in the AWS world, you have, Cognito for user management. You have either, what is it? You would either have, REST or AppSync for GraphQL.
Yep.
And then you have S3 for storage for files, and then DynamoDB for databases. And of course, there's many more.
Yeah. So, but you can back it not just with DynamoDB, but I believe you can use RDS. I don't know if you can use Aurora serverless with it. I don't know if you could use DocumentDB with it yet, but I definitely know DynamoDB and RDS. One thing I found out recently was that, which is about DynamoDB, but like when you build out DynamoDB tables, generally the DynamoDB team will recommend you to use single table design. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. Okay. So that's when you like cram a bunch of, like imagine you're using SQL and you have a bunch of joins, and you're just cramming them into one table to have all your access patterns.
Mm-hmm.
But the AppSync team says use multiple tables because I think that's the nature of GraphQL, where it has to map one identity to one table.
Mm-hmm.
So I think like that's one of the largest obstacles with Amplify, or at least the database side, is like understanding how it works underneath. So yeah, so that just finished running. Cool.
Okay.
And so I'm just going to take a peek here. And so we actually have a provisioned application. So I'm assuming that's just like if you're using Rails, it just sets up a skeleton application for us. Cool.
Yeah, how does this work? If I run npm start, is it going to open up another browser window for?
I'll give it a go and we'll see what port it starts on. So with Cloud9, it has to be on port 8089, and we might have to open up the security groups for it to work. But I'm just going to see what port it starts on here. Maybe we'll have to override the port. I assume you can do -p. So that's 8080. I said 8089 and 8081. I think 8080 is something that it can do. So what we need to do is I'm just going to go over here, and then I'm going to go back to our AWS account. And I'm going to click into console whenever it decides to show me that button. Whenever it decides to show me that button, there we go. And now that I'm here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my way over to EC2. I'm going to find the running Cloud9 instance. And then I'm going to go to instances here. And we should only have one instance running. So I'm just waiting for the EC2 instance page to load. And there is a single instance. I'm going to go down to security groups. Actually, while I'm here, I'm going to go grab the, I drank some carbonated water earlier. I'm going to grab the public IP address. I'm going to bring it back all the way over here. I'm going to put it in our top level README so that you have the IP address. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my security groups here, and we're going to look at view inbound rules. And we can see that only port 22 is open. So I'm going to click on the security group. And what we're going to do is we're going to open up those ports. Now, generally, it's not great to open up to the internet, but I think it's going to be okay because we are on a limited time window. I don't think anyone's going to compromise their account in that a short period of time. If they do, I'll learn my lesson really well. But we're going to open up port 8080. I think you can give it a range. And so we'll say from anywhere. I'm just going to add them individually because I can't remember off the top of my head. And we're going to give 8081 because I can't remember if it'll let one or both. And then what I'll do is I'll go ahead and save that. I just got to choose anywhere here. And we'll go ahead and save those rules. And so now those rules are saved. So port 80, 8080 and 81 are open for TCP for both IPv4 and IPv6 because we're all using IPv6, right? And so now we're all good. So we should just put 8080 on here. And so if this is running, it should be accessible from the internet. So I'm going to copy this link and I'm going to put it in my browser. And you can tell me too, Karam, if it works. And I can see the React app. So there it is. It says edit source app.js and save to reload. So that's awesome.
Okay, so we successfully have a React app.
So
that's good.
If you watched my last stream of this, that's like, I spent like 30 minutes trying to remember that. So.
Okay, so I'm going to stop it for now. We don't need it.
Okay, great.
That was just to make sure that we got it up and running.
Awesome.
Okay, so back to, so all these services on the back end, what Amplify does is it abstracts it away. And so it uses what they call categories. So your categories are like auth, storage, API, auth, storage, API, could be a couple of others. Anyways, so those are probably the three main ones that you work with.
Yep.
So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to run Amplify configure, since we haven't configured the CLI yet.
Yeah. Oh, and just a quick question. I don't know if you know the answer to this, but Hanmant, I'm terrible with names. I'm like the worst with names. I'll just say Han. Han asked about DynamoDB, whether it's mandatory to have single table. Well, I assume that if you're using AppSync, you have to use multiple tables because it's the nature of it. And I would think that if you choose to use DynamoDB directly, there's probably some way you could map single table design to it, right?
Yeah, so it's not mandatory to use single table design with DynamoDB. This has been a long conversation and discussion I've had with multiple people, including people inside the AWS organization. And yes, single table design is what they advocate, but they also say that not all their customers are doing it. So there's some recognition there that it's not, you don't have to use single table design. And there is, Rich Buggy put out an article, I think last week, showing how to write AppSync resolvers, but inside of Amplify, it won't work. You have to do basically, and I'll show you this in a bit. But what you have to do is you basically have to map every object in GraphQL to a table. It's a one-to-one relationship.
Mm-hmm. And
I think they're working on, or they've mentioned that they're working on a way to do single table design. I'm not. I sort of went back and forth with this, but I don't think. You see, Amplify really matters. Well, what's great about Amplify is for prototyping, getting something built quickly. Mm-hmm. Now, if you get to the point where you're hugely successful and you have a team of developers, my understanding is to move to a single table design is about a week's worth of work, and then probably, I don't know, maybe another week to clean up all your, point all your resolvers to the new single table design.
So would you say that it's more pragmatic to work with multiple tables and then you write an ETL or something to then move over to the single table design eventually?
That's I think what you would do.
And then optimize where it makes sense, for cost and performance?
That's right. I think the only downside to having multiple tables is that you have to manage more tables long term rather than having, one single table.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know how much those the DynamoDB cost adds up when you have multiple tables. Like, do you notice? Or because like this is the thing with the free tier, right? So on DynamoDB, it says you get 25 provisioned reads and writes, but it doesn't say, is it per table? Is it across all tables? And then if you're using provisioned throughput, do you really want to do that? And like if you with Amplify, do you want to have it on demand, or is it by default on demand?
It is by default on demand.
Okay. So, but in production, like even for small apps, have you noticed like any bill come? Like, is it in a sense? Is it free? What have you noticed?
Well, yeah, it's hard to say because we're all my projects are pre-production right now.
Okay.
But I can tell you the attitude is that you're going to optimize for developer time. And so you're going to save so much money on developer time that you're not going to worry about paying a little extra for, these additional tables that you're using with Amplify. If
you're the first person to publish an article on what the pricing is at scale with DynamoDB from the start to growth, you'll be internet famous because nobody knows. Because it's like, these tables, you're like, was this going to cost me? Is it going to be cheap? I don't know. Because and then you think like single table design, they're like, yeah, don't use as many tables because it's like them warning you like it's going to get expensive. Cram it in that one table. But anyway, we're back to the configure here. I'm just getting off topic here. And so I think we just have to hit enter here. and I'll go ahead here. So we'll choose our region. I'm thinking US East 1 because that's where all services are available, and it doesn't hurt. I know we could do, actually, is CA Central even an option? I'm just curious. I'm just going to go down. I think we can choose it. But we're going to go with US East 1, so we have fewer hiccups. We'll need a username. So I assume this is them creating an Amplify user. I'm going to type in Amplify. Then we're going to hit enter. It's going to give us a link. It wants us to follow through with that. So I think I will copy that link, because if I was in my my terminal, right, it would just open it up. But since we're in Cloud 9, you have to manually paste it in here.
That's right.
Whoop. So I'm just going to go back here, and I'm going to go ahead and copy this back into my browser. And I'm making a bit of a mess here. Okay, and so I'm in the IAM console. I'm just waiting for it to load here. And so by default, it has pragmatic access selected. That makes sense because it's going to be working with Amplify. This user doesn't need management console because it's not a real user. We're going to have to add it to give it permissions. This is what's most interesting to me, is that the default Amplify user, it gives it administrative access. And so you think on the team that they would have like pared it down, but like, I guess there's just so many services you can integrate with. It's like, who wants to spend all that time paring it down? But like, I wish there was something that would make it less permissive, because from a security perspective, I really, really don't like giving this user as pragmatic access, administrator access. That's like a great thing for a compromise. Have you ever, like in practice, have you just had to leave it like that? Or have you seen anything where you can actually pare it down, or does anybody know? Because I can't find any information on it as of yet.
Yeah, I think some people have pared it down, but I'm not sure. It might have been a trial and error process.
Probably.
I think they left it wide open because they keep adding new features. What we've done is we've segmented our, we have multiple accounts, and so our development environment is its own account, and that's how we're managing it for now. I'm not sure what we're going to do in the future. Cool.
So yeah, so that's something interesting for me. I just don't know if you'll be able to like pair it up. Sometimes there's security tools that detect what you need and then they pare it down. I haven't seen a tool for that yet. So whoever makes that is going to be dev famous. So all these ideas about being dev famous. So I'm going to go ahead here and create the user, and they have an access key and secret. I don't know if we need that, so I'm just going to copy it out.
We do need it, so I don't know if you want to hide that from the stream.
Oh, it's okay. It's just administrator access. It's not a big deal. So there's nothing I can really do about this. I'm just going to have to hope we're okay, and nobody takes the time to write that down or screen capture that and do damage and spin up like Redshift servers on me. But anyway, so I just do that in a README for the time being, and I'm just going to go hit here and hit enter, and it's going to ask for the access ID. And it's saying make sure it's a secret. Yeah. We've already failed at that. Oh boy. So I'm gonna paste that in there, hit enter, and but I don't know. I don't know if Google having anything like this. So whatever, And then we'll paste in that secret key, hit enter, and so it says, "Would you like to create the AWS profile on your local machine?" I'm gonna call it Amplify.
Yeah, never call it default. I learned that lesson the hard way.
Oh, did it actually say that?
So yes, no, it didn't say that. The AWS SDK defaults to default. So if you install that after the fact, it'll override it and everything breaks.
So here it says we cannot update or manage temporary credentials because the credential file has been modified. Would you like to force an update? Sure. Hopefully we don't lose access to everything. That's like another nice thing about Cloud 9. It's just like I used to have a Hackintosh, and so usually I'd be coding on a Mac, but that broke, and so now I'm on my Windows machine, and I just didn't have an opportunity to get that. But also having this is sharing, so hopefully that works. So anyway, I had the user set up. So what's the next step?
So let's do Amplify init, INIT. Yeah.
Okay.
And this is going to initialize our project.
We're going to name this project Amplify. We'll leave it by the default new. The environment is definitely dev. Choose our editor of choice. Technically, we're using Atom, but we're not going to be able to do that. So I'm going to choose Vim. I don't know when this comes into play, why they ask you this, because I assume like it might open files by default for you. But like if we choose none, then we get nothing. So I'm going to go with Vim. I don't know how well versed you are in Vim. I'm really well versed in it, so that's what I'm going to choose. Choose the type of app you're building. We're not building Android or iOS today. We're going to build a JavaScript app, React or React Native. I'm assuming that was React that we generated out, not React Native, right? Because
That's right, React.
Yep. And obviously, none is an option. We still don't have my favorite framework, Mithril. Nobody seems to want to use that. Very good framework, by the way. I actually built a boilerplate on top of it, and I call it Dilithium, which is based off of Star Trek, and then Mithril is based off of Lord of the Rings, right? Source directory path. Source sounds fine to me, and I think that's what ours is. Distribution path is build. I don't know if that's the case. Is it build or is it public in this case?
Build. That's
okay,
right.
Build. Oh, because it'll build out another path. All right. Our build command, are you happy with that command?
That's right. Yeah, okay. That's all correct. You can hit enter through all these.
All right.
It's what's the great thing about this is it detects what you're building inside of and pre-populates it for you.
Cool. Do you want to use an AWS profile? I thought we already were, so I'm assuming yes. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
By the way, anybody who's like using the CLI, see how it's capital Y / lowercase n? We found out that's case sensitive. I don't know if it's in all the CLIs, but some CLIs, if you put lowercase y, it would just not work. And then, but here's the weird part: is that sometimes the y would be lowercase, and then the n would be uppercase in this, like in the same path. So I opened like a couple tickets on GitHub issues, and I hope they solved that. But I thought maybe there's a logic behind it. I don't know. They're making sure you're paying attention. Please choose the profile you want to see to use. We only have one, so we'll say yes. Is that profile our AWS profile, or is that an Amplify profile?
That's the Amplify profile that you created when you copied over the secret key.
Okay.
Okay, so now it's building the deployment bucket on the server.
And I'm just going to make my way over to CloudFormation so people can see that, because that's what I assume that it is doing.
That's
so
right.
We'll just pop over here. I'm a huge fan of CloudFormation. I will never use Terraform until I make my certified Terraform certification course. But
you're the first person to say that, I think.
I'd like make a Terraform course, or like say you hate it, but.
Well, everyone I speak to doesn't like CloudFormation, so. I
like CloudFormation because, so with Terraform, there's one project called CloudGoat, and it sets up like security environments that are compromised on AWS, kind of like the one we set up today here. And so it uses Terraform, and for whatever reason, it just does not work. And so I don't like having an additional layer where something could go wrong. I'm not saying Terraform is bad. I'm just saying like, I didn't have a good experience with it, but I bet once I have to make a certification course for it, I'll change my mind on it. But also, it's like, I guess when you use Terraform, then you don't get the advantage of this UI and all the synergies in AWS. But maybe there's a UI for Terraform. I don't know. Maybe HashiCorp has one when you log into maybe they have like a paid service. But anyway, so here we are, and it looks like it's created everything. So it created a deployment bucket. So I'm assuming it's going to host it on S3. It created an auth role. Yeah, so nothing too complicated. So we'll make our way back here. And so our next step is to start adding components.
Yeah, adding categories. Yeah.
Sorry,
categories. Oh, and another category, by the way, that we can add is the function category. And what that'll let us do is create lambdas that it will push as well to the server for us. So,
oh, nice.
Just quickly, I'll highlight a few things in the project. So we have an Amplify directory now, and it's pretty bare. But as we add things here, we'll start to use some files in there. And then in our SRC directory, you can see it created an AWS exports file. And if hopefully we get to that stage, but that's where so the AWS exports file, we'll use that to import our settings into our front end app. So that'll be pretty handy. We'll show you that in a bit. Do you want to add GraphQL AppSync API?
If you're coaching me through it, then yes.
That's my favorite. Yeah, that's my favorite thing. So
okay.
I think really this is the best part about Amplify, and I don't think they get enough credit for what they've done here. So what we're going to do is we're going to type in. Well, I got to get back in the terminal.
Oh, and just one question about
sure.
AppSync. What's the cost on it? It must cost something, right?
Yeah, I don't remember the costs offhand, but we accidentally left something in an infinite loop running on a browser, and I think we ended up paying for a couple of million like I don't know, $30 or something.
That sounds like if you have a Fargate task and it's failing and it continually launches, it'll keep on pulling the image. And anyway, I've heard of this, but for a different service.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just misconfiguration, right? So
yeah, that was just a bug that somebody, probably me, left open on their computer. But it's it's pretty cheap.
But the point is that you had something that was continuously running. It was only $30.
Yeah,
so that's pretty inexpensive.
Yeah, and I'll show you what it does, like compared to, let's say, how much time it would take, a team of developers to write all the resolvers. And I know it's not that long, but it adds up. So I'm going to type Amplify add API.
Mm-hmm.
And so here it asks us if we want REST or if we want GraphQL. We'll select GraphQL.
Mm-hmm. Now, if we chose REST, would that be syncing up to like something like API Gateway REST, or is it just
exactly? Yes.
Oh, it is. Okay. Yeah. And REST is the new one, or is that the old one? HTTP is the new one. With I don't know if you know this, but like with API Gateway, they have a simpler, more cost-effective one. I think that's called HTTP. So maybe we'll see that in Amplify later down the road, or maybe it doesn't make sense because it doesn't integrate with it.
I don't know. I haven't seen that yet.
It's much newer, right? So not many people talk about it. So provide an API name. Being consistent, it's good to keep it the same.
Sure, we'll keep it the same.
Okay. Would you normally change it?
No, I usually name everything consistent across the categories. Okay. That way, when you're in the console, when you bounce back and forth between different apps, you can see what you can sort of tie it together visually.
So do we want to do a Cognito user pool? We could just do like email and password, right?
Yeah, we could. I was thinking API key just to keep things simple. We could always add Cognito pool after, because you can have multiple auth strategies on one AppSync app.
Well, let's keep it bare bones. We'll do API key.
Mm-hmm.
Enter a description for the API key. Do we have to?
I'll just put test.
After how many days from now should the key expire? 1.
There we go.
Can we say like 1 hour? Do you want to configure advanced settings for the GraphQL API? What would the advanced settings be?
So advanced settings would be something like adding another auth strategy. So if you wanted to have API key and a Cognito user pool, you would continue. I usually just say, no, I'm done at this point. We can always go back and update it. So
okay.
That's a nice
so would you usually go default or?
Yeah, just go, no, I'm done.
Okay, cool. Do you have annotated GraphQL schema? Do you happen to have some of you? And look at that, lowercase y.
So
you know what I'm talking about?
The uppercase N means that's the default.
Oh.
Yeah.
How did you find that out?
I don't know, just clicking, just hitting enter, running through it too fast.
So, okay, wow, that's interesting. Oh, sorry, but I'm assuming we don't. We're creating our own schema from scratch here.
Let's take one of their boilerplates. We can start there.
Okay, so it will prompt us for it.
Yep, it'll ask us
if we choose no.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, capital N, because if we do lowercase n, I can't trust that it'll work. Do you want a guided schema creation? I'm assuming that's where we're saying yes. Correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And so single object with field, one-to-many relationship.
I say we go one-to-many.
Yeah. Is there another one? I'm just checking. Nope. It's just that there's no many-to-many. Do you want to edit the schema now?
Sure.
Okay. Did it just open it? Oh, it opened it. And so there you go. That's why it mattered whether we choose Vi or an editor. But I guess I imagine you wouldn't be able to choose Cloud9 because it wasn't an option. But that's okay. I'm very versed in Vi. I don't know if you are, so maybe I'm the star now. But so we're looking at here, and I guess this is what we call resolvers. Like, what do we call these? Like, this is the schema, but what do we call these?
Yeah, so this is STL. Either types or objects.
Types or objects. Okay. And so I'm just looking at here. So we have a blog entity. I'm going to call them entities, posts, entities, comments. So I'm assuming that these all map to individual tables in DynamoDB. So we have ID and name. Then we have something here that says posts. and then we have this connection thing. I'm assuming that is kind of like a foreign key.
So yes, it's like a foreign key.
Okay. Key name by blog, fields ID. So it looks like that means it's going to map the ID key here. Connection, key name, ID for the post down.
What happens if we open this up in the editor? Is it going to give us?
Well, I just wondered, was there any steps past this or no? Because I can just right quit on this, and then we can edit it from here, eh?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's go here and see if we can get some.
Okay. So, and it just spit it out a little bit more than I was expecting. I can't even go up here. So I think that was the end of it. But anyway, was there any more steps, or was that really the last step for that layer?
Yeah, that was it. So it's just giving you some information here. It's telling you that you can either, so if you can see let me see, can I drag this? So inside of this Amplify directory, we now have an API folder.
Oh, I see it there, yeah.
With the name of the
schema.graphql.
Yeah, and so if you go down to schema.graphql, this is our schema file. And what you can do, this comment here about edit your schema at basically says, here's your schema file. And if you want, you can split up the schema file by creating a schema directory and then having multiple GraphQL files inside that directory. So that's all it's telling you there.
Okay, so if you wanted that, you'd literally create a schema folder?
Yeah, you could do that.
And then it would, is it, because like in Rails, like just a different framework, it knows by convention. Is that a convention? So does it have to be named schema, or could it be?
Yes, it has to be named schema.
Yeah. All right, and so, but the idea is like if I wanted to take blog posts and comment and make them 3 separate files, I can do that.
That's right.
Okay, and it's just organizational, just to make things a bit easier.
That's right, and once your project grows to a certain size, this file can get pretty big.
And the thing is, if they are broken up separate files, you can reference things in other files. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
It just pretends like they're all one big file. Okay, cool. So, but I'm assuming we added this, but we actually haven't created the schema. So if we went to DynamoDB, this doesn't exist yet.
That's right. So right now we just have this, locally on this, was this an EC2 instance? And so if you want, I can talk through a little bit about what's going on here before we push anything. And actually, we don't even have to push this. The nice thing about the API key and not integrating with Cognito is we can skip the step of publishing to AWS, and we can actually run this locally if you want to open up another port.
What would it run in?
So there's an Amplify mock, and what it does, it'll spin up a DynamoDB simulator and an AppSync simulator, and actually an S3 bucket simulator if we had that in the project. Yeah, that's really handy if you want to build locally first, test it out, and then push it to the cloud.
Are those just containers, like Docker containers?
I'm not sure what it's using behind the scenes. I know that it's a version of SQLite, I believe, but I'm not sure what they're doing for AppSync.
Okay.
And then you also get, Amplify also comes with its own version or its own flavor of GraphQL. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that tool.
What? Sorry, which tool?
It's called GraphQL.
No.
So GraphQL, and hopefully we can get this up and running here too.
Is that like an agnostic SQL? I saw like a project that AWS was doing, and it was supposed to be, it was open source and it's supposed to be agnostic SQL for multiple platforms or multiple data sources.
Well, it's for GraphQL, and what it'll do is it's for mocking up your mutations, queries, subscriptions. Okay. And I'll see. Hopefully, we can get it up and running on here. It'd be pretty good to use. So,
sorry. Just to move on. We had a question about what's the primary key here. I'm assuming the primary key would be the IDs. Do you actually have to specify the primary key, or is it just? Oh, actually, is this the key right here? Where it says key?
So that's the @key directive is a GSI. It's going to create a GSI for you. Okay. So the ID fields, if you declare an ID field with a type of ID and make it required, this will create your primary key. You can override this. I'll show you real quick by creating a key and not specifying a name. And then what you can do is put ID here, and this will function as the, oh, let me close the.
So it's the equivalent of if you explicitly did it, right?
That's right. So this is just short. This is shorthand. Amplify knows that you want a primary key on this ID field, and it'll create it for you. But if you want to override it, for example, if we wanted to call this blog ID, if you want to be more descriptive in your primary keys, then you would just call this blog ID here. You can also create, what do they call it? Composite keys. So you could have a hash key with a sort key here. So you would just, add your sort key here and then have it, I don't know, probably you would make it a string or a date or whatever.
A string would be a date. But like there, it just it's just for IDs implicitly, and then if you want composite, you have to be explicit.
That's right.
Okay. So for our structure, do you have an idea? Is there anything we want to modify for this?
No, not yet. Not yet. No. So, what's going to happen here is so first to know that in Amplify, there's a thing called a GraphQL transform. So it's going to take this SDL, your schema definition language, and it's going to build on top of it. This isn't actually your SDL. This is like a layer before it. And so what it's going to do with these directives, for example, with @model, it's going to create a DynamoDB table for you. It's also going to write all your resolvers for you in AppSync with all your CRUD and list.
Okay.
And you can control that by specifying various arguments, but we'll leave that like that for now. Okay. And then the next thing it's going to do is it's going to see, for example, here you have this field called posts. Mm-hmm. That is a list of your post type that is defined down here. Mm-hmm. And with the @connection directive, what it's going to do is it's going to build a resolver for that posts field that's going to connect to your post table, right? Your type through to your table. And it's going to use, in this case, we're using a GSI to query that table. And we're going to specify the field that we want it to query on. So we want to use the ID and the blog type to query against this key here. I think you can see my cursor, right?
Yep, I can see it, yep.
And we're going to say, here's a key, a GSI that Amplify is going to write for you, that's going to be able to query the post by blog ID. So they called it by blog.
Okay.
Does that make sense? I'm not sure if I explained it well.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the thing is like, no, it makes sense. It's just, I just think of like all your access patterns, like how do you define all your access patterns?
So that's the thing. If you're building, so here's the idea is that if you're building an app from scratch and you're iterating quickly, you may not know all your access patterns from the beginning. You might have not sat down to do all the design work because things are going to change. So what this does is it allows you to be flexible. So you can, create keys, drop keys, repopulate them. The repopulating part is you're sort of on your own there for that part. And then you can reconnect your types or your tables, depending on what you're doing.
So like one of the biggest hangups of DynamoDB is that, especially if you read the documentation, it's like plan, but basically the way everything is structured, it gives you that agility so that you can use DynamoDB, and then later down the road, then you could then map these to single table designs for more optimal performance. But the takeaway is like, I get that flexibility that I want.
That's right. Yeah, the Amplify team basically decided to go with this approach. You can be flexible with single table design, but I don't think it's recommended. I mean, if you listen to Rich Houlihan, he'll tell you can do it, but everybody else says, save that for later.
Well, of course he can do it.
Yeah, of course
he can do anything, right?
Yes.
Yeah. But so I guess would the next goal be just to stand up this in DynamoDB and then try to get some data to show up in our app here?
Sure. Yeah, and we could try to run this locally. I don't know what locally means in this context, but we could try.
I mean, I don't mind pushing it. It doesn't matter to me.
Sure. Okay. Let's do Amplify push.
Okay. Amplify push. Do I have to specify anything else?
Nope, that's it.
So now if I made a revision to that schema, would I just do amplify push again and it would figure out the difference?
That's right. Yeah.
Wow. And does it keep like a history of, are you sure you want to continue? Yes. If you were to make changes, does it keep a history of those changes or no?
No, it doesn't.
Okay. Do you want to generate code for your newly created GraphQL? I don't know if that would ever make sense in a NoSQL paradigm. It's just that when you come from like relational databases, all frameworks have migrations, so you can go back and forward. I don't know how important it is to roll back in a NoSQL environment. Choose the code generation language target. We're using JavaScript here.
That's right.
Enter the file name pattern of the GraphQL queries, mutations, and subscriptions. By default, it's source GraphQL. So it's going to take everything in the source directory here. So source, we don't have a is it under? I don't see a source directory. Oh, maybe I'm in the wrong application.
It's going to create it for us.
Oh, it's going to create it for us. Okay, we'll hit enter. You want to generate and update all possible GraphQL operations, queries, mutations, subscriptions? Yes, please. To the maximum statement depth, increase from default if your schema is deeply nested. Have no idea what they're asking.
So you see how blog has posts and then posts has comments?
Yes.
So on your queries, you can nest those. So you can say, give me all the blogs with all the posts and then all the comments.
Okay.
So that would be 3 levels deep, but right now we're saying 2. So if you want to do 2, that should be fine.
So does that mean that if I do nest beyond 3, it just won't return anything?
No, you can do 3 and it'll add the comments, right?
Well,
so when you
sorry, what I'm saying is if I set it to 2, but I structured it for 3, it won't return the third nesting?
That's right, yes.
Why does it explicitly need to say that? Is it just because it's just the limitations and so it has to explicitly set that for DynamoDB?
No, that's for your queries on the front end. So what happens is you could end up, depending on how, if you have a deeply nested schema, you can end up with 6 levels deep, let's say, for example. And if you do that in one query, that's, maybe that's too much data for your front end initially. So maybe you want to break up your queries based on what your views look like. So if you're viewing, data, let's say in this example, you're viewing a list of the blogs, you may not necessarily want all the posts coming back in all the comments.
So I just ran Amplify this here, and we actually had a failed creation. API key validity out of bounds, exception request. API key must be valid for a minimum of 1 day.
So you need to set it to 2.
But
I know. I know.
Okay. Well, but to be fair, like I did set it to a ridiculous number, and so now it's probably going to fail. So I'm assuming we don't want to touch this as it's failing because it's going to roll back, delete in progress, right?
That's right.
I don't know what would happen if you killed in the middle here. I feel that that would be a bad choice.
No, don't. Yeah, don't do that. That's.
Then you'd have to go in here and delete the stack or roll it back, and that'd probably be a big mess. So now how do I fix that? So
let's do Amplify API update.
Okay, it's going to ask me again for a new date.
Yeah, let's see if we go through these questions again.
Walk through all configurations or update auth settings.
No. Let's walk through all configurations just to be safe.
Okay, so we did API key.
Yeah.
Enter the description. We did test. It's weird that it's not pre-populating from prior. Choose. We'll just do 365. No problems. Do you want to configure advanced settings? No, I'm done. I'm surprised it doesn't pre-populate. And so there we are again. So now we should be able to go back up. Before I push, actually, was that the command we ran? Push?
That's it, yeah.
I'm going to double check here and just make sure, because I'm paranoid. Update, rollback complete, good. I know CloudFormation really well to always double check it. We'll hit enter here. And we'll make our way back to CloudFormation. And I know this says it here, but I like to view it in CloudFormation. It's my favorite service.
Okay, I'm going to hit yes on the continue.
So if you were an AWS service, would you be Amplify? No?
No.
No?
Oh, geez, I don't know.
More of a signal systems manager or an ops works?
I'd be a front end developer, is what I'd be. Let
So,
somebody
so
else handle it for me.
maybe use CodeStar. Have you ever used CodeStar, AWS CodeStar?
No, I haven't.
It's like the one AWS project that like just doesn't do anything. It's just there. I think there was like a period where everyone was like, AWS is too hard. So AWS is like, fine, we'll make a bunch of services to veneer over our services.
Hmm.
So like you think of Beanstalk. Beanstalk makes it easy to manage infrastructure, and then CodeStar makes it easy to manage Beanstalk.
Well, that's what Amplify is. Amplify is like the easy way into AWS, and you can learn things, as you go along.
But I mean, like it's flexible and you get like a high productivity and you have a pattern you can follow. So my big motivation for Amplify is like for Exam Pro, I'm trying to break it up into micro front ends.
Hmm.
And so I'm almost thinking of like I've already scoped out like all the things that I want, but I'm almost thinking of like making small Amplify apps and then connecting them all together. I'm not sure how that's going to work because I'm not sure if I can point. I think you could, but like with application load balancer, take a path and then point it to Amplify. If Amplify is hosted in S3 static website hosting, then that means it has to be served in front of CloudFront.
Hmm.
And that means that the only way I'd be able to connect a bunch of apps is through subdomains, and that would be kind of dirty. That's the only issue, right? So was that all right? Or
I think so. I think so. You can, like I was going to say, you can have multiple front ends pointed to the same back end, but you do have to set each one up in its own subdomain.
so, but as far as you know, like Amplify's the front end is always on S3 static website hosting. It can't be hosted on its own isolate server, can it? Like an ECS job or even an EC2 instance.
Well, yeah, you can put it anywhere you want at that point. You could put the front end, like have your own, push it up somewhere after your build.
So, but when Amplify generates it out, there's no option to choose like, hey, point it to this server, right?
No,
Okay.
doesn't have
But
that.
you could just move the file somewhere else, and because all the API endpoints are intact, it would just work.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's not that bad. So what you could probably do is just if it went to the S3 bucket, you could just build a code. I'm just talking because this is going, but you could probably just build make a code build job that could just move it to where you wanted to. So you could use S3 as kind of like your dev hosting basically, or your
Like
staging.
Exactly. Yeah.
Cool. So I'm going to check on this create in progress. I don't know why it's taken forever. It's just creating a bunch of tables. I'm going to make my way over to post comments resolver. I'm just wondering what that is. I'm going to go resources here. So wondering if it's making lambdas. Oh, it's AppSync. That's what it's setting up. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that the DynamoDB is coming. Well, let's go take a peek over to AppSync.
So is there a way for me to see your screen when you move over to
No.
the console? Okay.
Not really. Except follow along. We just have to say, can we add more fields and join once application in the AWS infrastructure? Can we add more fields and joins once the application in infrastructure? So I guess we kind of answered that prior, which was there is flexibility with AppSync in terms of defining your schema. So joins isn't really a thing. You have those connections. So those are your joins. But yes, you have flexibility there. So it's kind of like, it's like, I think someone calls it faux SQL.
So the one thing you have to be mindful of is you cannot change your primary keys, right? You can never change a primary key, and then what happens is you have to drop your table and recreate it, and all the headache that goes along with that.
But I mean, like in a relational database, you don't change your primary keys either, right?
That's true. Yeah.
So I don't feel like you're anywhere limited. But the thing is, there is more strategy around that because of how your access patterns work, right?
Yeah. So what just to highlight why I said that. So that's one of the reasons why I steer away from having composite primary keys. Because if you change something about how you use your sort key, you now have to recreate your table. So that's why I tend to favor, and I think that's why they sort of push this @ key so that you can have your different access patterns change over time, because you can't do that if you lock in your, you have to, I don't know, you change your sort key, something changes, you have to recreate everything. So that's why I think it's better to use the @ key and the GSIs, even if it means putting 7 or whatever it is, 5 is I think the limit, or whatever the limit is on a DynamoDB table.
How would you
So that it makes it more flexible.
how would you migrate your data from one table to another? Is there an easy way? Would you use AWS
No.
Glue or?
So there's no way in Amplify to do it. You're on your own there.
So I would think I guess it's not like if you learned step functions actually has a model that talks about how to use step functions as a way to iterate over each DynamoDB item and then insert it into another table. So that would be the best use case for it. It would actually keep track of every single thing in the queue there. So that would probably be a solution. I don't feel like that would be easy, but they probably have a template for it. I would think like you could use AWS Glue. I always think AWS Glue, but maybe I'm wrong. So anyway, I'm in AppSync here, and I'm just curious. I know you can't see my screen, but if you could do me a favor, just go up to Services at the top and make your way over to AppSync, because you should have access to it. Or you might have to open up a new tab, do aws.amazon.com, go to the console, and we'll just take a look at it together here. And while you're just making your way over there, I'm just going to go back and I'm going to go check out. I just showed people the secret access key again. I'm just going to go over to DynamoDB and see if those tables have popped up over there. And you might want to open up that tab as well.
Sure. I've got the AppSync tab open now.
Cool. And I'm just checking DynamoDB to see if there's any tables here. And we have 3 tables, which have nice names and then some crazy stuff after it. Some crazy,
sure.
crazy.
So the RCQ, etc., that is the name of your AppSync app. Or the ID, I should say, the ID.
It's like a UUID, like a unique ID.
Yeah, it's a unique ID in AppSync.
Does RCQ stand for something? RCQO?
No, it's just
Or is it just random?
Yeah, it's just the ID of your. If you look at apps, the apps directory in AppSync, you'll see it listed underneath the name that we created. And then the next part is the environment. So everything after the hyphen is the environment. So if you have multiple environments, you'll have multiple tables here. So you could have, dev, demo, staging, test, whatever.
So AppSync is a fully managed version of, I think it's fully managed version of GraphQL. Right. And so here I can see some stuff. I'm just in it right now where it says getting started, talks about defining a schema, run a query, integrate it with your app. I'm assuming we've already done that. I'm just going to scroll down here. So I don't think there's anything interesting there. But I'm going to make my way over to schema. And so here's our schema. So basically, that's all of our stuff that we saw before. I'm seeing some additional things I didn't see before, like input. So what are those?
So this is part of that GraphQL transform that I was mentioning earlier, where it'll build out inputs for you. So inputs are typically used in your mutations. So you can see there you have create blog input. And so that's those are the fields that are, well, the ID is optional here because the resolver will notice that the ID isn't there and it'll populate it for you. So it'll stuff a UUID in there for you. And so it's telling you basically what are the fields that it needs for the input. And the same thing for the create comment and the create post. And then there's a couple of deletes in there I see as well.
And then on the left-hand side, we have data sources. And so that just looks like it is a way of referencing, that's just like the connection to the DynamoDB tables. Nothing super interesting there. We'll make our way over to functions. So functions are single operations data source that can be used to implement redundant logic across multiple pipeline resolvers. So I'm assuming when they say functions, they're talking about Lambda functions. And
That's
so right. This is like a way of overriding functionality or adding, is it like middleware? What is it?
So what you can do is there's another directive called @function, and you can write your own Lambda functions and then link them up. So you would add a Lambda to your Amplify project, add a function, and then you could wire it up in your schema so that when you make it, let's say you make a call to that that I guess we could call it a query or a mutation or a subscription. Well, query mutation, and it would call that function for you. So it wires up what's called a pipeline resolver. And what's really neat about that is you can stack them, you can string them along, so you can have multiple functions called for one. Let's just call it an endpoint for now. And that's where you would see it. So if we added a function, we would see it here. In the data sources, I'm not sure if you clicked on that yet, but that'll show you those are the connections to your DynamoDB tables.
Yep.
And then in queries, you can test out some of your queries.
Okay.
And if you want, we can add some information this way, or we can go back to Cloud9 and try to spin up a mock instance with graphical.
I'll probably just do the AppSync, but
It's gonna be hard for me to see what you're doing. So
really want that. Oh, I guess that's a good point, right? Probably should do that. And so I guess the next question is, so like if I want to start adding data, what do we do? Do we build our queries and then that's the approach?
yeah, so you would start writing mutations.
Okay, so let's make our way back over to we had a question about is it like getters and setters, and I think the question was referring to when we're looking at the schema for the inputs and things like that. Would you describe it as that? Okay.
Yeah, you could think of it as getters and setters. Your gets would be so in GraphQL usually the pattern is you have your get and you pass in an ID, or you have your list, and then your third one, the third pattern here in Amplify is, you know what? Let me show you. Can I show you a few of them?
Sure.
So.
We already got another question. How would you remove the list CRUD that got generated from GraphQL transform? Since I assume that this is DynamoDB scan, or control how much of the sync operation?
Oh, so you can control which mutations and queries get generated for you. You can either change the names of them or you can remove them altogether, and then you can overwrite your resolvers if you want. I'm not sure if that fully answers his question, but I think that's what you want to know.
So I've made my way back into the Cloud9 environment. So how do we mock? Because this does have Docker installed on the Amazon Linux one. So if it does have to pull containers, it totally can, if that's what they're powered by.
Sure. So, can I show you a few things first?
Oh, sure. Yeah, of course.
Okay. So we have a resolvers directory. And right now that's empty because we haven't actually written any of the resolvers ourselves.
Yes.
But if you go to where is it? There should be a build. Is there a build directory?
Yeah, right above resolvers for me in the Amplify.
Yep. So in the build directory, here's a schema. Here's another schema.graphql file. And I just opened this up. And so the same thing that you were looking at in the AppSync console, that's all listed here.
Oh.
So this is after your build step is done. It builds this schema, and this is what you could call it, like this is your real schema that gets pushed to the cloud.
I see.
And then your resolvers are in here, and what you can do is you can copy these into the other resolvers directory and override them. So I'll show you, for example, here's your blog posts request. So what this is going to do is it's going to wire up your ID that it gets from your blog, and it's going to pass it down to get your posts.
Okay.
And then here you can see the index is using by blog, which was named in the @key directive.
Yep. Cool. So and what does VTL stand for?
Oh, velocity template.
Okay.
So that's, I think, the same as the REST gateway API, right?
Gotcha. Okay, so what's the next step?
Let's see if we can mock this up locally. So I'm going to type in Amplify mock. And so this will spin up AppSync simulator and DynamoDB simulator.
Max retries for starting DynamoDB emulator. Interesting.
So maybe that doesn't work on.
I guess it just depends on what it's powered by, right? So I'm just going to go take a quick Google here. DynamoDB emulator. Because if it's just containers or lambdas, it would just pull from the internet, right? I'm just trying to think of like maybe it can't. No, it has a route to the internet, so there's no reason it shouldn't be able to pull. I wonder if this is the same thing as DynamoDB local. It's available JRE, Apache Maven, or as a Docker image. So I bet that what it is, it's powered by a Docker image. You definitely can use Docker in Cloud9. I just don't know why it's not pulling.
So I tried to cancel it, but it's not doing it. That's very interesting.
Oh, is it just, it's not taking your Control C?
That's right.
I'll give it like 100 here. I promise rejection, this error originated throwing it async. So I guess it's just going to do that forever now. Whatever. so,
Okay.
so what's our backup plan?
Can we start a new terminal here?
Just close this one here and we'll close it. And if you open up a new one, I should be able to see that you've opened a new one. So if you hit the plus, then you go to new terminal, and just give me a heads up when you do that.
Can you see the one that I'm typing in now?
Not as of yet. Let me just double click and see if this is the same one. I see it. Yeah, I see Amplify mock API.
Let's try this, see if this works.
Okay. So we'll just mock something else. And so if this fails, then we know maybe like if it's all the same technology we know, or maybe it's just that's not letting us do it. So I can't tell what the error is. What I'm going to do is just reduce the font a bit so that nobody watching can see the font anymore. And but I'll be able to see it, and we can get to the bottom of this because I just can't see what's going on. I'm just going to bump it down to 12 font, and we will make our way back to here. This window just gets smaller and smaller. On my screen, like there's like a limited window, and it just refuses to show me more. So I can't fully read it. So I don't even know what the problem is. I also, one thing we might want to check, I don't think it would be the issue. I'm just wondering what node version we're on. I don't think it matters that way. 10 point, no, we're on a new version. It shouldn't be an issue. So I have no idea why the mock API is not working. But if AWS is watching, you might want to get the mock tools working on Cloud9.
Yeah, I was able to scroll up, but then after you typed in node v, I can't scroll up anymore. Strangest thing.
Yeah, that's just the limitations of Cloud9. So if that doesn't work, I suppose the only way is to actually be able to do the schema here, but you're not going to be able to see it in sync. So what are your suggestions?
Yeah, the AppSync console.
Because I can go to queries here.
Can you share your screen with me on another, like maybe on Skype or something, and I can...
It'll probably degrade the feed, but we'll give it a try here. Oh, someone says here, how would you, or try with that IP 20002. I'm not sure. Oh, wait. How would you remove the, oh, they asked that question there. I'm not sure what they mean by the IP 20,002. But what I'll do is I'll just try to screen share here with you, and then maybe we'll get here somewhere here. So I'm just going to do a call here. My fingers crossed it doesn't break the stream. Okay, and I'm just going to go ahead here and screen share. And do you see my middle screen?
It's coming up. Yes, got it. Perfect.
Cool. So here I am. Oh, it has like pre-entered text. Okay, but it's all commented out.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I'm writing a new query, right?
Let's do a mutation. We need to get some data in there.
And you got a little bit quiet. I'm not sure why.
Oh, do you want me to move closer to the mic?
As soon as we got on the Skype call, it just it decided to audio, but I'll just carefully listen. So hopefully it's still loud for everybody in the stream. I'm not sure.
Hello, hello, hello. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can still hear you. It just got really quiet. I think when Skype joined, it decided to bump down your audio. But anyway, so we need to put a mutation here. So what is the purpose of a mutation?
The mutation is to manipulate your data.
Okay. So what is the first mutation we want to write? What do we want to call this mutation?
Let's call it create blog.
Create blog, okay.
So, but yeah, the curly braces. And then if you start typing create, it should bring up, there we go.
Okay.
And then brackets, right? Input.
And then what's the next thing we need to supply it?
Input, type in input.
Oh, sorry, okay. It's just a little bit hard to hear. Input, yep.
And colon.
Yep, colon.
So it's going to be an object.
Oh, sorry. What am I typing?
Like an object, curly braces.
Okay.
There, yeah. And then we'll leave ID blank. I can't remember what was the. Let me look at the schema. So let's have a name. What do you want to call your blog?
What do I want to call my blog? I want to call it AWS Obsessed.
There you go.
I can spell it right. I don't think that's right.
So is that double quote?
Google will tell me. I have Grammarly, but I guess it's not popping up in that box there. There we go. The double's okay, or is it like singles?
Doubles doesn't like singles at all.
Okay.
So, and then after that closing bracket, one more.
Do we want to put more in here, or?
Nope, that's it. That's all we need.
Okay.
And then after that, open another set of brackets, or curly braces, I should say.
With within the parentheses?
No, outside of them.
Okay.
No comma, just 2 curly brackets.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then inside of there, type in ID and comma, name.
Name?
Yep.
So what did I just do?
So you're creating a blog post or a blog, I guess it's going to blog, not a blog post, and you're going to return the ID and the name of that new blog that you just created.
Oh, these are like the projected attributes? They're coming back to me?
Projected, I'm not sure. It's the actual.
You like return, let's say you like query something DynamoDB, and it returns, like you say, I only want, maybe they call it filtered attributes, because they always say projected attributes and filtered attributes.
Oh, right. Yeah. Like on a GSI, it's a projected attribute.
Yeah. I just can't remember. I always get the terminology mixed up, but I always think projected attributes are the ones you cherry pick out, but maybe I'm thinking filtered attributes. But anyway, the point is I'm going to put input name and I want ID name to come back to me.
That's right. And if you hit play, if you hit the big play button, that should run. So there you go.
That's the data structure that's going to come back. Eh?
That's right.
Okay. So now that I have this mutation, I'm going to copy it and I'm going to bring it back to Cloud9.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And where are we placing this?
Well, we wouldn't place it anywhere. And like usually in my projects, if I have some setup data, I'll create a setup folder and save them in there. But you don't really need to have that in the project.
Oh, because we're just it's not necessarily an action that our application is going to take. It's just something that we've done here.
That's right. And we've already have those mutations written for us in the front end.
That's a good point.
Yeah, for JavaScript anyways.
Okay, that makes sense. So I guess the next step is actually trying to get some data into our React application, eh?
Yeah, do you want to create some posts and comments or just one for now?
So I guess we would just follow the same pattern here, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
So you could... So if you want, actually what you should do is copy that ID before the ID that it returned. That way we can link up the posts to that blog.
Okay, so what I'm just going to do, I'm just going to copy the whole thing. I know that's a big old mess. And I'm going to show, I'm just going to take these out. Nobody needs to see those anymore. And we're going to have our create blog data here. So we'll have create blog. And by the way, if anybody wants to learn more about AWS security, watch my security videos on my YouTube channel here. Okay, so we have this here, and we'll make our way back to AppSync. And I assume, so we can name this whatever we want, right? It's just whatever we call this mutation.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we need to make some, we have posts, so we'll say create post. The input would be, we have AWS, so we'd say like AWS for how to protect your access keys. Okay. Was there any other attributes you remember? Was it just name?
So what you can do here is you can click on the docs on the right there.
Oh, and it shows you some.
So click on mutation. Yep. And then create post.
Okay. Create post.
So it takes an input of create post input. And now if you click on that, now it shows you the fields that you can use.
I can just get this thing out of the way here. And I'm going to go, oh, I lost my code.
Yeah, Command Z or Control Z.
Oh,
Z,
I see.
yeah.
Okay. So we want to create posts. We want to input. It's going to need to be title. Oops. We'll say title here. Oh, this thing doesn't want to get out of the way. Okay. Got a nice little pop-up here. So I'll just go back here to create post. I'm going to go back into input. So we have title and blog ID. So that's what you were saying we needed the blog ID for.
That's right.
I assume we put a comma here because this is just a JSON object, as you said before. We'll do capital ID, colon. I'm going to go make my way back to the application here. I'm going to go grab this ID. And we're going to copy that.
Commas are optional in GraphQL if you're on a separate line.
Oh, they're optional. Well,
Yeah.
let's drop. A long time ago, when I went to the Ruby on Rails conference in Amsterdam, there was a very famous programmer at the time named Mislav, and he was very famous because he did parkour and he was really cool. He had half his hair was like beach blonde, and so he was really known for like coming up with very creative programming. I left my computer open, and what he did is he came up to it and he removed all the semicolons. And I was like, "What are you doing on my computer?" And he's like, "I fixed your code. It's much cleaner now." So it doesn't happen as much anymore. So we create the post. We have the title. We have the blog ID. We don't provide it an ID. I'm just curious about the conditions here. So now my question is what would we return? I guess the ID and the title, right?
Yes, and you know what? You can also return the blog, I believe. So if you type in blog, see if that comes up.
Type in blog.
Yeah, is it connected on this one? I don't know if it was connected. Oh, it's just so if you go back one in the mutation, if you click on right next to where it says create post on the third panel.
Oh, on the third panel. Yep.
So you see where it says mutation? Click on that to send you back one, yeah. And on create post, you see how it has the colon and then it says the return type is post?
Yes.
Click on that. So those are the fields that it'll return.
So my question is, if we don't set this here, will it return everything?
No, it'll actually give you an error.
Oh, it'll give you an error. So you have to be explicit about it then, eh?
That's right. You have to return at least one field.
Okay. So I'm thinking we want ID and title. We don't need anything else at this point, right?
That's right.
So we'll go ahead and hit play there. And so now we have the ID and title. I'm going to grab that fellow up here. We're going to paste that up here. Create post. And so now the next thing is to make a comment.
Mm-hmm.
Getting tired, just tell me, because we just hit our 9:30 time limit. So we'll do create comment here. And I'm going to assume that's create comment. See how efficient I'm getting already? Create comment. We'll go into input here. We have ID, post ID, content. So we need our post ID. And then we'll make our way back over here. We're going to grab this ID here. We're going to go here. And we are going to then paste in the content. And I'm just going to write a message here. So I'm going to say, what do I do if I have exposed my access key on a live stream? Should I contact AWS support? Okay, and so I think that's that. And so as you were saying, if we go back here, we can see what it returns. So I'm going to look for create comment. I'm assuming it's going to return a comment, but I assume it could return something else. And so we have ID, post, content. So the ID is fine. I guess we'll grab the content. Probably should grab the post ID while we're here, just so we don't get confused. And I think that's right. So I'm going to hit play here. And that looks like it's good. And so now,
do you want to do a query for fun? Yeah.
How did you know?
That's the big buildup, right?
Yeah. So I'm going to pull this out here. I assume that it's going to be query, and we're going to say get. like I want to do a nested one right off the bat. Can we do nested right off the bat, or you think
Yeah,
we should
let's do it.
Okay,
Let's do it. Yeah, all the way. Three down.
Okay, get 3 down. I like it saves me some time. So what am I doing?
So
Hold on.
first of all, you want to list all of you either list or you do get.
So I just want to see if it's in the documentation here. So I go to query.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's the thing. I want to get I want the blog, the post, and the comment, right? So now if I use get, I can get it nested. Now if I use list, can I get it nested as well?
Yes.
Okay. And the only difference is one's going to return an array of objects and one's just going to be an object of nested stuff.
That's right. It's going to put it in an items field for you, and it's also going to give you a next token if there's more records to get.
Is it more or less the same if I use get and list?
Let's go with list.
Okay. So I'm going to go into list here, and let's see if I can figure this out here. So we're going to type in list logs. And so we have a filter option. We have a limit option. Do we have to specify a limit?
No, we don't have to do any of those. We can just leave it as list blogs.
Okay. So I'm looking at this, and it's not clear what I have to type next. I'm not sure what this is. So how do I get actually the blog object here?
So you can remove the parentheses.
Okay.
And just put the curly braces.
I'll get or afterwards.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what?
And then inside, you have to look at what the return is. So what is it returning?
It says it returns model block connection. So if we go here, we have items and next token.
Okay. So type in items.
Okay.
And that's going to be
right?
Pardon me?
Sorry. So we have items here, but there must be more to it than just writing items.
Yes. So you have to specify which fields you want returned. So open up another set of curly braces.
Okay. Hugging or like this?
Yeah, like that. And then inside there, you're going to specify the fields that you want.
Okay. So we have blog. And so now we can say, I want the ID and I want the name. Oh, and so now we have the posts. So that's where you get the posts?
That's right. And then inside of that posts field, then you would open another set of curly braces and then specify the fields that you want from posts.
You do that. So we go here and we go to connection. And so that has items. The first time I used GraphQL wasn't because of choice, but before I built Exam Pro, I wanted to publish an application in the into the GitHub Marketplace. So like if you've ever used Jira, it has swim lanes, right? And that's what's most popular for Jira. Like everyone loves their swim lanes. And so I figured that if I could add swim lanes to GitHub projects, then people would want to they would adopt it, right? Because it's like the only thing that people really want in Jira. But in order to use the GitHub API, it was all GraphQL. So that's where I had to learn GraphQL. And I called that project Swimmer because you added swim lanes to a GitHub. The only reason I quit it was because at the time I wasn't really good at building things out for like based on their requirements. And the requirements was like, how are you going to make this like highly available, durable, scalable, and secure? And I'm like, I don't know. and so that's why like I was like getting more into AWS because I'm like, well, I guess I have to meet those requirements, right? And then I never came back to that app. And so now I just make AWS certification content. So we're going to want comments as well. I probably, if I did this for real, I'd probably want the created at date. And that's interesting because I never set those. So by default, it added those, eh?
That's right. Yeah. Amplify writes those for you.
Rails.
Oh, yeah?
Like it's not explicit, but like when you define your schema, you always add t.timestamps on the end. So you have a created and updated at timestamp. So coming from the Rails world, that's really nice. And so we're going to do these comments. I'm just going to go into here and we will go ahead here and do curlies, and then we'll do items, and then we'll do curlies. I just want to keep on putting colons, but I know I'm not supposed to. And then we'll go into comment, and then we will do ID. We wouldn't need the post ID. I like how you can get to the post. We don't need that at that level. We're just going to get the content. and probably the created at.
So remember when we were talking about the nesting, and
Yes.
why would this is where you would say, well, if it generated 4 levels deep, it would bring back that post again. So you end up with this nesting that is recursive.
So here's the thing. I chose 2. So I didn't choose 3. Now, so here's the thing is like, can I go back and change it to 3?
Well, that's just for your front end. You should still be getting your posts back or your comments back. Did you get them?
I don't get the comments, but I get the post. So I get the items and the posts, but I don't get the actual comments. But when we had that option, I set 2 instead of 3 as the nesting level.
Yeah, that's just for your front end code. This should be bringing them back. I wonder, did we get the right ID when we created those lists?
I don't want to get rid of this.
Leave it
over here for a moment.
Well, let me show you how to leave it, and you can actually have multiple queries in that window. So if you want to start another query right underneath it, and just name it something different.
Okay, but all right, yep.
So call it, I don't know, list posts, because that's what we're missing.
We're missing comments. Oh no, you're right. We're missing posts. Probably items, and then I just do ID title.
Yeah,
so then how do I only run this one?
So you want to remove that colon. You've got an error there on line 8.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
So hit the play button, and you should see it come down. It'll be a drop down.
Oh, okay. So I thought that's why I kept on clearing out. So there I get a post.
Okay, add the blog ID
to
your returns.
Like just to this one here. Oh, I see what you're saying. Just to make sure it is what it is.
Yeah. Let's see we got that ID properly.
So. Validation error, field undefined blog ID. Oh, I spelt it wrong. Supposed to be that. Okay. And so I guess if we really wanted to confirm it here, so we have this one. I'm just going to copy it over here for a moment in case we need to look at this here. So that's the actual ID of it. And then if we go back to AppSync and we go to this one here, right, and we run it, that's the ID we're getting. So the question is that the same ID? I paste that in there. 3A229, 3A229, 6AAE, 6AA. Huh. I mean, it looks very similar, though.
It's very close.
It just doesn't have an E on the end.
No.
I remember someone mentioning earlier that I didn't have an E. They said, I think they retracted their question, but they're like, you didn't have an E on the end of yours. And I didn't know what they were saying. So you know what it is? I entered it in wrong. That's
yeah, copy paste.
I actually messed up the data. So one of our users was warning me. So the question is where did I add it? I guess I didn't add it on the actual post. So now if I had to update it, let's go give that a go. So I assume that in order to update, it is mutation.
That's right.
And then we'll say update post. And then in here, we'll say update post. And this is just me guessing based on convention, which seems to be doing pretty well. I noticed that create had parentheses, so I assume this one has to have parentheses, or is it just optional?
It's required when you're passing in arguments.
Okay. And so in here, I'm not sure how this works. So I'm going to try to guess, and I'm going to go over here and leverage the documentation. So we'll go all the way back to, holy smolies. We'll go back to mutations, and we'll scroll down, and we will look for update post. And then in here, we have an input. Okay, and so that's where we did the input. So then we do input. I can't remember, did input have a colon or no?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. And then we go to input here, and our input is going to be our blog ID. But then how do we...
Well, it's going to be an object, right? Input is an object.
Okay. Oh, I guess my thought is like we need to select it. We use conditions to select it and input to update it?
So in your input, you pass in the ID. I've never used the condition argument before.
Then how do you individually select that post?
So you select the ID.
I select it.
So you have to add it here to your list.
Sorry,
See when you're
in
typing,
the input field?
yes, in the input.
So I'm going to put ID colon, and then I'm going to provide the actual ID here. I guess I just don't understand the full nature of it. So I have the ID in here.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but then how do I actually update the blog ID?
So put the blog ID in there as well.
The new one.
That's right. The one you want it updated
so the
to.
idea is that it's going to use, it always uses it by default. It knows to use the ID to get it. And then anything additional is going to just be updated if it's different.
That's right.
Okay. So it's just that convention, right? I come from a world of convention like Rails. So for me, it's like, it's okay that it's not explicit. So I'm going to copy this here. Actually, I'll just take this. Yeah, I'll just take that like that. And then what we'll do is we will place that here. We'll put an E on the end here. And I have to spell, I got to spell something right today. And we're just going to scroll on over. And we have pretty good retention. We've had 10 people on the feed the entire time. So they're like listening to every single word we say. But they're not writing too much. So we have this update post. I'm just going to double check it. So it looks good. Do I have to return anything?
Yes, you always have to return at least one field.
Okay, and you know what? I'm going to return the ID and blog ID because that's what we're changing.
Mm-hmm.
And I might as well return the title so I can at least see what it is. And we're going to go ahead and go down to update post. And we have it. Look at that. Okay, and it has a new E. So now if we go back to our original query, fingers crossed, there we go. All the way nested down.
Mm-hmm. And you have your comments too.
Okay. So now my question to you is, do you feel that we have time to get it in the app? Can we do it in 10 minutes?
Yes, I think we can.
Okay, let's squeeze it in. So I made my way back to our application. And so now we have this get down query. So back here in Cloud9, I'm just looking around here. So where are we going to stick this?
So we should go to the app. Actually, we're going to have to npm install a few things.
Okay, so we'll make it over to terminal. I'm going to go over to your terminal here. So I'm just going to click this here. Great. So what are we going to install?
All right. So should I type now?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Let me go back to that window.
Sure.
Okay. So what are we going to do here? npm install. Let's do AWS Amplify /API.
Does the @ mean anything, or is it just what they chose to name it?
Oh boy, yeah. So it's what do they called it? Maybe somebody in the chat knows. Is it named packages, where you can split up your packages so you don't have to add the entire add the entire project or module into your project. You can split up the modules into separate pieces, so you only add what you need. I think that's what it denotes, but I don't know offhand. Somebody in the chat might know better than me.
Okay, well, I guess we'll find out.
Okay, so we'll go to app.js and let's do import API from.
Oh, sorry. So we just installed the package API so that we can work with it. I got it. Okay.
Yep. API. I think I have that right. I'm used to having this all auto-completed for me. So.
Well, if we were using VS Code, maybe next time.
US export. So this is the exports file from that directory. Make sure it's there. And then what we'll do is API dot configure and pass in the config. And then over here, and you can see I'm not typing in semicolons. Over here, we'll add, actually, we'll just do this. react.useEffect. And so we want to load the data.
Mhm.
Oh, and I'm going to need to import one more thing. I'll put that here as well. So was it list?
Oh, and by the way, you're right about the packaging. We got confirmation in the chat.
Okay. So this is going to be in GraphQL /queries. When I saved, does this format? No. Okay.
And while you're done, I actually just opening up queries.js to see what you're talking about. So I see that there, yeah.
So that's all generated for you by the CLI, which is nice when you're getting started. And by the way, I think Amplify is probably the best way to learn GraphQL because it's going to write all this for you. And then as you learn, you can start modifying the queries and the mutations as you need them. So it's really easy to get started with.
This is generally just scaffolding, and you can change it however you want. These default ones that come here, like list comments and stuff.
That's right. Yeah, what I do is I keep a separate what I like to do is I keep a separate file for all my custom queries and mutations, and I'll use the tool to generate the code for me, copy and paste it into my custom files, and then modify them there. So that way I can continually, build as I'm building new tables, changing the schema. I can have it populate it for me.
So if you have a custom queries, where do you put it? It just goes GraphQL and it'll pick it up? I guess you just import it, right? So you can do whatever you want.
That's right. I just keep it in the same directory, and Amplify doesn't overwrite it. So
okay.
Okay, so let's make a function here called what is it called? Get blogs.
Okay, so that blogs is going to return ID name post. Okay, great. I was just taking a quick peek at it.
Hold on here. Let me.
Every time I see React, it's like it changes. It's like something new.
Yeah, this is the new hooks.
I was going to say, is this the hooks? Is this the hooks I keep on hearing about?
This is it.
I never stop hearing about hooks. And I'm like, what are they talking about? I have no idea.
Yeah, it's the latest trend. Everyone's doing it. So query. Man, I'm really testing my memory here.
Okay. I would be useless with React right now. Well, you're using the GraphQL API, so.
I think it's variables is the next one. We'll just leave that null. And so we're going to have a result here. So maybe at this point, what we'll do, and obviously you want to put this, in production code. You want to have your tries and your catches and all that. I'm not doing any of that here. But let's just, can we do that console log the result? I think I have this right. So what this is going to do is it's going to call out using the API module from the Amplify.js package. It's going to make a GraphQL call. We're passing an object with a query, which is list blogs, and we're not passing any variables. So we're not filtering. We're not doing any list, like, any limits. And then we're just going to console log the result. And this will run when the component loads. So I'll go back to the terminal here and do npm start.
Oh, yeah.
Did it?
Just trying to make my way to your terminal here. Oh, I'm there. So you did get an error, right?
Yeah. What happened?
I can't tell. Half my screen's taken up, so I can't scroll up.
Oh, wait. I'm not in the project directory, am I?
Oh, there you go. That's the issue.
What was it? What did I?
Sometimes you have to go into another directory. Yeah, they're Amplify new, I guess, hyphen. So the one minor inconsistency we have there.
And I better install this API package again. And fingers crossed this will work first time.
Yeah.
How is list blogs defined but never used?
It's defined but never used. I'm going to go back to the app here. We have list blogs here. It's used up there. Clearly, it's being used.
Did I not save it? Maybe it wasn't saved. Okay, there we go. It wasn't saved.
Okay.
So do we want to hop over to the, browser?
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm going to give it a refresh here. And we're just looking for a console log. We're not looking for anything else. So I'm just doing an inspect, and my inspect window is opening up here. And we're going to see what we get. We have an object. We have data. We have list blogs. We have items. There you go. We have the data. And so, you know, from here, like it's just the usual React stuff. This was one thing I didn't like about GraphQL, and this is just because I'm from the monolith world and I've been building apps forever, and I always get exactly what I want. But you know, the structure, does it bother you that the fact that you don't you have additional fields, like, or I guess you just get used to it, or because the idea is that this pushes on just a little bit more effort on your developer because you have to transform your data a little bit.
Do you mean that you're getting more data than you need on the front end, or
just the nesting, right? So like if I wanted to make this, I probably would I would probably have it a little bit cleaner, right? So if I went into here, I'm saying this is the nature of it, but like we have data, and then we have list blogs, and you have items, and then you go in there. Like for me, I wouldn't have data, I wouldn't have list blogs, or I wouldn't have items. I would just immediately return stuff. So you have to drill down a little bit.
So there's a reason for all that. If you get any errors, it'll exist in an errors field. And the other thing to think about is with, I don't use this very much, but with GraphQL, actually I don't use it at all. With GraphQL, you can make multiple calls multiple queries inside of one query. So, so that lists, that data node could have multiple fields being returned.
So there's more to it than just that. Okay, I get it. So there's actually a reason for it.
And then you also see that next token that's null.
Right here, yes.
So if we had a limit of 10 and we had 12 or 20 records, we would have a next token in there that we could pass on the next call if we were going to do paging in our app.
I see.
So yeah, you're right that it's pretty heavily nested, but it all exists for a reason.
Okay, I just never knew. So cool. Do you want to actually visualize it, or do you feel like we've satisfied the application?
It's up to you. If we want, we can iterate over it very quickly. Maybe do
if you take your 5 minutes, I'm allowed to stay up if you're allowed to stay up. So
yeah, nobody's well, where am I? Okay.
So we have the result here. I'm just not familiar with hooks, and I'm not sure how we would get the data in here.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so we'll use state. So let's call this blog. Wait. Blogs and set blogs. React.use state, and we'll set it to null. I typically follow the pattern of null means there's nothing, and an empty array means nothing came back from the server, but you can do whatever you want there.
Yep.
So I'm going to put if not blogs. I'm just going to return, I'll return a div that says loading. How's that for good UI?
Okay.
I think that'll, okay. And then here, let's just kill all this. And in here, we'll go blogs.map. And let's see, what should we do? We'll have Do we want to do something like this? Then in here we can have specify a key. It'll be .id. Oh, what happened there? And then here, what is it? Name, I think. Is it name?
For blogs, it is, yes.
And we'll close that. That's pretty.
I know you're trying to concentrate down below, but on line 12, when you have the 2 square braces, you're returning an array of blogs and set blogs. Is set blogs the results, and it's assigning it to blogs the variable?
Oh, well, we need to set it here. Hold on.
Okay.
So I'm going to put result.data.list blogs dot items.
Okay.
Let me think here. Is that what we want? I think that's what we want.
Okay.
We could nest this if we wanted to. Actually, let's do that. Well, I'm trying to think if there's.
We don't have any nested data to nest.
Well, we have posts on blogs, right?
That's true.
So let's hold on here. I'm used to having Prettier do all my formatting for me. So yeah. Here we'll do that.
So I mean, you can run VS Code on AWS. You just have to launch an EC2 instance. The only tricky part is getting it to shut down automatically. So if you have like an EC2 instance, you can right click it and set a alarm so that when there's no usage, it shuts down. But Cloud9 seems to do something additional where it like even tracks like mouse movement so that it's more intelligent about shutting down. So that's the only disadvantage. So it's like if someone could solve that, it's like you could just run Visual Studio Code or Code Server. I'd rather run it on an EC2 instance than to have to use Azure's solution, which I haven't used yet.
Mm-hmm. Because
like I don't know how I'm going to bridge my AWS stuff over to Azure. Good luck with that.
I'm trying to think. How do I want to put? Let's put a blog. I don't know how.
So I mean, I guess you'd have to go and. Because if you need to nest the data, don't you just have to update your query or make a new query?
Oh, it's already in there, but I'm just trying to do this quickly, and I'm
okay.
Let's see. This would be blog.name.
Beginner's question: is it necessary to use an Apollo server with GraphQL?
No, I don't need to.
That's the first thing I was thinking too.
Blog.name. I'm really mucking this up.
That's hosted MongoDB, right?
Apollo server?
Yeah.
No, I think it's Node, and I does it sit on top of Express? I'm not sure, but you can spin up your own Apollo server. So AppSync is taking the place of Apollo server.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's a hosted. It's just an alternative to GraphQL like AppSync. It's just a third party one. Now that I remember. Sorry.
Yep.
Yep. Is it necessary to use Apollo server with GraphQL? Yeah. So I guess the question is, in this case, we are using AppSync, which is AWS's managed GraphQL service. You'd want to use AppSync because it has synergies with existing AWS services. I don't think you could even substitute Apollo or AppSync for Apollo.
With post, was it a post name or a post title? I think it was title, wasn't it?
For posts, it was called title.
Okay, let me see if this. Oh, I did something wrong. Okay, what did I do here? Oh, here. All right, do you want to refresh and see if this works?
Yes. Fingers
Or
crossed. It's loading. It says AWS obsessed.
I don't think I got the posts in there, but
Okay. I'm just looking here. There's no errors. I can go inspect the elements here. We only have that one element. Since they don't have any names, I'm not sure here. I'm just going to take a peek back here at the code. We have blogs.
oh, because I didn't. Hold on, I didn't use the actual blog component.
Yeah, I was going to say I see the element up there, but I don't see called down below. Maybe.
Yeah. So what we want to do here. Change this to blog, and then pass in blog equals blog, and then close it. I think that should work. No? What did I do?
Is there a syntax error? Because there's no.
Yeah.
There.
There we go.
Okay, cool. And so blog is not defined, lowercase blog.
Oh,
So
there we go.
This is not defined. Oh, maybe it's because it's B.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we'll go back here. I like how it auto refreshes. That's nice. Fingers crossed. We have an error map. Map is undefined for type. So it has an issue with items. Up here, it's saying it's undefined. So blog post items.
Oh, could you open up the console again? Let's look at the.
In the browser? Here?
Yeah, the browser console. I missed the
So it
shape.
just says cannot read property of map. So it's right here, items.map. So I'm assuming items is undefined or null. Maybe let's console out the blog.
Yeah, could you open up the data? Data
sure. Sorry. Yeah. Data list blogs, items, posts, and there's no items in it.
Oh, that's why.
If we go back here, and I'm just back in the term console here, we have list blogs, because I think that's where you get that from, right? So wouldn't you have to go to that query and see what's in there? And so here we have list blogs, but it doesn't have, it has posts right here, but it doesn't have anything other than next token. So is that what it would return all the contents or nothing because it didn't actually specify items in here?
Oh, maybe that's why. Yeah. Let's add some fields in there.
So this is generated by Amplify. Are you allowed to override it, or would it override it later on?
Yeah, if you rebuild these, it will override it, but it's okay for this example to just add it.
So here I assume we just do items, and then I would just do ID, title, created at. I type it right?
Yep, that's right.
If I save it and we go back here, I like how I changed the schema and then it refreshed. I didn't think it would do that. And there we go.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll just check the data structure here. We'll check that the data is there. And look at that. So we 100% achieved our goals. This is unbelievably impressive, considering all the technical issues we had. But we got through it. It was a little bit later than I was expecting, but if everybody's okay there. So I think that's pretty much it. Like there's so much stuff in Amplify. Like there's the Amplify console, like for your continuous deployment. That's really interesting. We had that API endpoint. Did we actually use that? I guess it must have, because that's how it must have authenticated for DynamoDB or GraphQL, right? It used that API authentication, correct?
Yeah, if you want to look in the AWS exports file, then since we already exposed our secret keys,
yeah, it's not going to matter. I'm gonna blow them away anyway.
You'll see that the API key is in there. So when we call API.configure, it's pulling all the information out of here.
We do have one question here from Luke. He says, in AWS Amplify data store, is it possible to modify the default query to do something more specific, like DynamoDB query, like begins with for sort key.
Oh, you know what? I haven't used the data store much.
Is data store like local storage?
So data store is like a mini front end data store that it links into local storage in the browser.
Mm-hmm.
And what it does is it syncs with AppSync. You can actually use it standalone, so you don't need to have any backend at all.
Cool. So I'm not sure if it's all friends or different people here. This is the end of the stream. If you have questions, please do ask questions. Karam, if you want to throw in your LinkedIn or Twitter into the chat, might be a good time to do that because we're not showing it on the stream. If anybody wants to just connect with you or just be your admirer and follow you on LinkedIn.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'll how do I get to my LinkedIn profile?
But, so there's clearly more you could do, like authentication with Cognito. I'm not sure what data store is. I'm not sure if that's like supposed to make it like a PWA or give you local storage. I'm not sure.
That's
what
right.
Applies data store.
That's right. It'll give you your own data store in the front end that you can sync with the cloud. I'm not sure. There's a predicates, and you can do some filtering and some querying, but I really haven't played with it yet to know for sure. I actually am blocked from using it because up until I think last week, you couldn't specify keys using connections using a key name. So I was waiting for them to release that feature.
And so I think one thing clearly with Amplify is it's not just for mobile apps; it's for desktop. It just feels like they always market it for mobile, and they put it under the mobile category. But clearly, it can build out web applications. It's just interesting to think like what this would look at scale, because that's the hardest thing for me to really visualize coming from a monolith world. I'm just like, great, you have all these NoSQL tables, but like, how does it scale into like a full size application? And what does that look like? Or maybe you don't do that. And what you do is you build micro front ends and you connect them. And maybe that's because like I always look at like bootcamp grads coming out of school and they're building, I call them toy apps. And I'm like, how are you going to get a job if that's all you build? But I guess if you can assemble them all into one application, then that actually is good. And that's a better way to run your distributed team. So maybe the scope of a project should only be a certain size. I don't know. Some deep at the end.
Yeah. It's a different paradigm. I don't know how much, like, I don't know how many. I know that Amplify is being used in production. I'm not sure at what scale. Really, it's the backend services are AWS services, so they work as AWS services would.
And I think the thing is, like, again, coming back from the Rails world where I'm from, Ruby on Rails, the thing that always people said about Rails was Rails can't scale, but it could. Or it's the fact that, it serves its purpose, and then you have to start bolting on parts that are scalable. And so I think you highlighted one good thing, which was like, yes, we are using AppSync and you aren't using single table design, but you can do it and you have the flexibility to get there, but you get agility in the short term. So I imagine there are probably a lot of ways where as you grow, there's parts where they will still be Amplify, and then somehow you tack on some other things that you need. But I guess to really understand that, we'd have to explore more of the API services. But yeah, I think that's it. Is there anything else you want to add?
Well, I would say, you can use Amplify as a tool and then eject from it as your product matures and maybe as you build out your team. What it's really good for is quickly prototyping and building web and mobile apps, and with a small team. So you can go pretty fast with this. I haven't seen anything faster yet, but I'm always looking for the tools that'll make me and make any developer as productive as possible. So I think that, we're currently working on this on one of my projects where we're shaving off some of the pieces and pushing them into other projects. And with, for example, you could use serverless to spin up your AppSync and then start porting everything over. And then in your front end, all you would need to do is change that configuration file to point to a different backend. And I mean, it's not maybe quite that simple, but on one level it is.
One thing I'd like to add there is that for rapid development, there was Rails and then there was Meteor. But the thing with this is that it's rapid development at scale. So, I mean, when we talk about scale, like we could talk about scale for enterprise or scale for, when we're talking about small startups, the scale of Amplify and like the underlying services are highly more scalable than the monoliths of the past. And so it's just like, I don't know if it would match. I bet you if you got used to the framework, it would just be as fast as Rails prototyping. But it's just the fact that I think it would just be more highly durable, scalable, except all the highs you get, you know what I mean? So that's kind of interesting. But yeah, so I think that's pretty much it. So hopefully everybody enjoyed the stream, and I have an outro video where you can listen to some music. And so that's the end of the stream. So thanks for everybody for joining here. And I'm just going to switch over to the outro, and then 10, 15 minutes from then, the stream will be dead, and then everyone can go to sleep. So there we go. And see you later. Bye.